Allô, comment ça va? It's your boy Ink, little introduction in French, because why the fuck not? Um, uh, we're gonna be reviewing an episode, and it's Walking Dead season 1, episode 4, Vatos. So again, we're still hunting for Merle. It's kind of cool because okay, so how did I feel about this episode? This episode was definitely weaker. Was definitely weaker. And the reason for that is the first episode where you're really drawing away from the manga. So little explanation. In the manga, Merle and Daryl don't exist. There's no such things. There's a guy named Tyrese, which is an amazing character. I love Tyrese. Which he comes in later season, but he should have come in right here. So we have an amazing we have this amazing character and we have to build two characters. So we're looking for Merle. They're still in the city, and it's kind of cool because we're starting with Andrea and Amy, and they're talking about how their father both teach them how to fish and how it was different. And it's important because it's the perception. So for example, it's gonna come in later, but it's a perception. The father knew one of the girl was more sensitive, one of the girl was more responsible, so it's kind of cool. And spoiler alert, Amy dies. And it's kind of cool because we're seeing how the father was like, yo, you have to do whatever you have to do to survive. And that is why Amy, she's able to kill Andrea because she's got infected, right? And then we switch to the city. I know if it's guys, I'm telling you the story how it went, okay? So in the city, uh there's this scene. I have to make a complaint. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be positive, but I have to. So we know Rick spent 28 days in the hospital. We know he's been spending 28 days. Now the girls, the sisters, Andrea and Amy, come back with fish. And you have a whole bunch of fish. And everybody's like, wow, how come you fish? So you're telling me that you were hungry. You're telling me that you're sending Glenn to get supplies. You're telling me that you're stuck eating mushroom that might be poisonous. You got two girls that are being able to fish. It didn't say shit. It doesn't make sense, right? My first complaint. Um, that's what happened. If you look at Game of Thrones, this the eighth season. Everybody hated the eighth season, but it was the first one that was out of the context, out of the books. So we have this. Now we're going back to the city. We have this relationship between Daryl and Daryl. You can see that he doesn't like T-Bone, possibly because he grew up around racism. But he's still kind of cool, and you see that he respects Rick. There's this kind of like a disobedience, like, oh, he's following and he screams, and Ricky tells him, um, don't scream. And this episode is really cool. It's really cool because I'm a big fan of Rick and Daryl relationship, a friendship, bromance, call it whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. I'm a big fan of that. So this is one of the first, right? And I feel like Daryl doesn't feel like T-Bone and Rick are putting much effort into finding Merle, because in every case it's like well, Merle is dead, Merle is dead. And I do understand that it's his brother, and it really sucked because I do feel like Daryl understand that he don't give a shit, but he's still his brother, right? And I think that Daryl's smart enough to understand that his brother is not easy to live with. So now we're going back to the bag of guns, because yeah, we can save Merle, and we can serve Merle, but you see, I did Merle like Daryl and Merle. We can save Merle, but we need the guns because let's be honest, they did come for the guns, and Merle, not Merle and the guns, is the gun and Merle's. See what I did there? We got Jim also. That we're getting back to a scene with Jim. Jim is shoveling for dirt. To me, this doesn't mean anything. This doesn't mean cool. I know Jim didn't have nothing. I know Jim is pretty fucked up because in the manga, Jim is the guy who went to the city to save his. Jim is like not a good person. Um, there was a bunch of Walker. He saw his wife and his children get eaten, and he kind of used them as bait, right, to run away. So he's pretty fucked up. He said, "Oh, in my dream, they were attacking." Doesn't mean much, right? What it does mean, however, there's one scene. If we can take one scene, if we can take one thing away from the gym, and is Jim is he's shoveling and he's being unresponsive. So you see Shane, who has to take is to be physical. He has to stop him physically, and then He's like, yo, there's no such thing as law. You might be a cop. You're not a cop anymore. Everybody's equal now. It's survival. And he's talking about how Shane beat the shit up of the abusive husband, the husband of Carol. And he's right. Shane didn't have technically the right to do that. But then again, Shane was defending the weak. I don't think she has to be a police officer to defend the weak. Was Shane moral better than Ed? Sure. Was Shane moral good enough to be like, I have a right to fuck this person up? Who knows? I think yes. I might be wrong. Who knows? About the city, we find out that Glenn has been. They meet a group of people. There's other survivor, and they get Glenn, but in exchange they get a. We don't even know the kid's name, but he's a kid. So they have a kid, and they have Glenn. So Rick thinks about an exchange, which is fair, prisoner for prisoner, right? And it's amazing. To me, this is really cool because in this scene, there's a couple of scenes where they treat a hostage. In season 2, they beat the shit out of the hostage. They have another hostage, but they beat the shit out of him. Honestly, they beat the shit out of him. So it's kind of cool that we're seeing the way they react with this one, and we're seeing how Rick is the main character. So we're looking at him for reaction and evolution mainly. So we're seeing Rick, the way he reacts to the prisoner versus the way he reacts to the season 2, and it's completely different. And they made this group of survivors that's like, yo, you want to trade? I think it's cool. I think it's actually pretty cool. Like, it doesn't add much to the story. They're a group of survivors who basically are taking care of old people, and they're basically like, oh, they're saying, oh, we're the kind of good guys. They're taking care of people. They're having their own survival. Rick decides to give the guns because they're good people, you know. But the problem is they're constantly like trying to attack, and Rick group is a nice group. But this other group, and we later learn because Merle is not found. We later learn that Merle, spoiler alert, Merle was he was rescued by the governor. The governor is not a good person, right? So the Vato, if they meet with Rick and try to intimidate, then Rick is gonna be like, okay, I'll play along. They're good people. I know they're good people. Doesn't care. Doesn't matter. They ain't trying to intimidate us. They're good people. The governor is like, yo, you try to fuck with us, you know. And it served. The only purpose it served is. Again, we're going back to the scene where Amy and Andrea, they were on the boat and they were treated differently. So Rick was treating differently this, and it's kind of cool because in Vatos you can think that the outtake is wrong. You can think that it's not important, but Daryl did see how far Glenn would go for him. T-Bone, it's not that I don't like T-Bone. I do like the character of T-Bone, but he dies, and sadly, the actor of I think actually T-Bone. I think T-Bone is important in the story. I think he's important. I think he has his own moral. He's not a cop. He's not a bad guy. I think bro, T-Bone. You can dislike the character. He does shit. He does shit. And yeah, it's his fault that Merle got caught. That's probably why he went there. But still, he does shit. He's part of the story more than people. For example, like Carol. For example, like Dale. They get more important later on. But for now, they weren't one of the more important guy. Right, Morales almost didn't have nothing to do in the story, but in the last episode he was super important. So try to explain that to me, right? And it's tough because T-Bone actor, he wasn't supposed to get killed, but the guy was always late on set. He wasn't responsive. He wasn't he wasn't a good actor, but he wasn't being a good person. So they kind of killed him off, right? So I do care a bit more about Glenn and Daryl because. Ultimately, they last longer in the show. So, having seen the show and knowing who stayed and who doesn't stay, if you know a character is gonna die in a couple episodes, you don't get to care about that character because you know it's gonna die. But if you know a character is gonna be there for a long time, you say, "Oh, I like you," because again, they're part of the story for a longer time. Be part of the story a longer time, eventually, or inevitably, or unguaranteed almost. You get more time and you get more persona. Exploration, right? So I think this is pretty cool. In this case, you see that Glenn don't see because Glenn is a hostage. He's not really a hostage. He's treating pretty good. But you see Daryl. You see how far Rick is going to go for. He's willing to go for Glenn, and it's funny because right away we're seeing a bond between Daryl and Rick, and as crazy as it is, Rick, this is pretty cool. Like, this is always my perception. Again, it might not been the attention. It probably not is. It probably isn't. I would still want to talk about it. Rick was willing to go as far for Graham as Daryl would go for Merle. And yeah, Glenn did save his life, and even they asked him, "Who is it to you?" He did, well, he saved my life, so I owe him. That was a pretty good scene. It's kind of crazy that, again, it's super cool because they did spend a lot of time in battles, and when they come back to the camp, right? They get attacked by a zombie. The camp gets attacked by zombies. A lot of people are saying it's because of Graham, because he brought the car. I don't know. What I do know is that we see a walker that was pretty close by in episode 1. We see a walker that was pretty close by in episode 2. Right? So we know there's walker, now there's a group of walker. It's different. And they're attacking the camp and they get a lot of people. So Ricky come back with the guns and it's too late because a lot of people are dying. And it's a matter of, if I came here before, could I have saved people? And now it's a question of with what people I want to save. For example, for Shane that beat up Ed, right? Because he was a wife beater. You wouldn't care about you would care about saving the people that matters. But again, you could be surprised because what's the name of the black chick in episode 1? She was a city planner, right? And it's thanks to her that they found the sewer. On paper, a city planner as a survival apocalypse doesn't matter, but it was important there. So you never know what you need. That's the episode. There you go. There you freaking go. It was an okay episode. I think there was a lot of good points. My issue with this episode is the good points are coming from a meta standpoint. The bad points are coming from a storytelling point. So if I have to dig deeper, the show is good. But if on the surface the show is not good, a lot of people are not gonna dig deeper. I dig deeper because I have to do a review. Otherwise, love you guys. Peace.